This is West Underground, Sydney's #1 podcast. So like and subscribe. And today we have none other than Flickertail on. We have the whole band on at the moment. And how are you, Liam?
Band, the one-man band.
That's right. Yeah, I used to be the best 25%. Now I'm the best
100%. Well, man, that's good, man. Like, you know, you are your own boss now, essentially.
Yeah, in very many ways, man. Like, I mean, in fairness,
yeah,
probably I gotta go check the window because fucking one of the boys is gonna watch this and be like, "You bastard." But in fairness, I functionally was the boss as it was, because like the way I like to view bands is that you're all in the same team, but someone's got to be captain.
Yeah.
And with this band, obviously, I wrote pretty much all the songs. Like a lot of the songs, I got co-writes on them because the boys did contribute, but the general thrust of it was mine. So yeah, you know, when things sort of came to their natural conclusion, we kind of sat on. We had a bunch of stuff recorded and ready to go for a couple of years, and I was actually talking to my brother, who's a couple of years younger than me, and he's not in music at all. He's very into rap.
Yeah.
So he like writes about that, but he's not like a musician. I saw my brother about it, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. And he was like, "Wasn't this pretty much a solo thing for you anyway?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, not exactly." But, you know, you take the compliments where you can get them.
Well, can I give you a compliment? But just before we start hitting you with questions, so I never got to see you guys because I kind of found out about you through a friend of mine who works over at Belfield. Shout out to Tommy. He won your competition, like for the shirts that you were giving away, and I was like, yeah, that's a fucking nice shirt. And then I went down I had a look at your page and stuff, and I was like, these guys look sick. And then I listened to your music, man, and it's been on my Spotify annual playlist 3 years in a row.
Damn, that's a long time.
Yeah,
it's been a while between releases.
Yeah, man, because you were the only band that you know, my favorite band is the Beatles, right? And probably second to that is Oasis. And you sound like if Noel Gallagher wrote songs for Thin Lizzy. That's what I feel like when I listen to you guys.
Yeah,
which Liam, you should put on your gravestone. If you want anything, that should be on your fucking gravestone. Yeah. If somebody said that about me, it'd be on my gravestone.
I'll fucking inscribe it right now. I've got an engraver down the road.
It'd be like a pre-obituary.
That's right. Yeah, look, that's a huge compliment because for me, that was like, as a songwriter, you give yourself briefs, right? To be like, you kind of. Because you just start off like writing, like, to be honest with you start off writing songs that are shit house. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, we're going.
No fucking way can you swear on this podcast. No, you're allowed, Liam. You're allowed one F-bomb a show. Okay,
I got to save it up. It's like an MA15 rating. You're allowed one. I got to save it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so like you start off writing songs and they suck. And they're like about your life when you're 15, which is not interesting because you're 15. And over time, you kind of like put things together from the various things that you actually, you know, you're maybe unconsciously influenced by, which for me was like classic hard rock and metal for a long time. And then when I was about like 17 or 16, I was around my mate's place and we were just like, fuck, it's like typical like adolescent party nonsense. But Don't Look Back in Anger came on and I stopped mid-conversation. I just went over to the speaker and just sat there listening to it. I was like, this is good. I'm going to base my entire personality around liking this band for the next 5 to 6 years. And I did. But the thing that before we were good, when we were just still like working out the kinks of like just playing songs, and I was writing songs very prolifically at the time. something that I tried very actively to repress was the consistent bubbling up of like Irishness in the songs that I was writing. It's like, why are all these songs in E minor? why are there all these like lengthy guitar figures?
Yeah.
And we played a show. We did I don't know if you guys were around for this period, but the Lockharts, 3/4 of whom are now Fangs. The Lockharts did an annual New Year's Eve gig. It would be like a massive gaff party. And so we played that one year. And Matthew Black from the Bottlers, who are a great band from Sydney, was there. They're like a folk punk band. He and I were having a beer together, and he was like, "You're fucking Irish, aren't you, mate?" That was my one. And and he goes,
"You've used that up so early. You've used that up so early."
That's all right, mate. I like to finish early.
The temptation's going to be with you now for the rest of
it. Don't bore us. Get to the chorus. No, so it's like, "You're Irish, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, the old man. My old man's like an Irish Scouser, and like my grandparents are from Ireland. So like I grew up hearing all this type of music, and I've been trying to like keep it out of my music because it's like it's very deep in my unconscious." And he was like, "Don't fight it. It's mad. People like it. Like there's a reason that these songs endure over hundreds of years. Just stick to it and see what happens." Like it's like, what happens if you write a song and you're not trying to not be a patty about it? And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it. All right." And I did. And once I kind of like let go of that thing where like my old man was really into Thin Lizzy, so like he like burned me a CD copy of Live and Dangerous when I was a kid, and I started getting into guitar music and stuff. And like once I started like really getting into it and be like letting myself be okay with that being a part of my musical influence, then I was like, oh, the band that I want to be in, the songs that I want to write are songs that sound like a mix of Thin Lizzy and Oasis. That was like the specific thought that I had in my head. I can't remember what year that would have been. It would have been like 2014, 2015. Like this, genuinely, it's crazy to hear you say that because that was, well, it's not crazy. It's derivative of the original thought. It's just a compliment. But like that was the
Hamish the shaman.
Yeah, that was genuinely the brief that I gave myself at the time when I like let go of that thing and just like allowed myself to lean into it a little more heavily, was to do it. And then it just happened. And then I think my songs go through, I've written a lot of very bad songs over the years. None of them made the light of day, but I've written a lot of very bad songs over the years. But all the good ones happened after two pivotal moments. The first one being that moment when I heard "Don't Look Back in Anger," and the second one was that conversation with Matt Black out of the Bottlers, where he was just like, "Let go of it, it's fine."
Yeah. That's amazing, man. Maybe you might write another one tonight. You never know, man.
Yeah, maybe I will. I'll be like, just the third moment.
Man, I have to say, like I've only been in Australia a couple of years, and I went through a process like you did when a band breaks up, and I kind of got a bit dirty on music for a while, Music. I've just dropped my F-bomb. Sorry, Hamish, that's two. And I was a little bit, I was so done with it. So when I moved here, it took me a while again to start to listen to new things and actually enjoy new things. So I like to call this compliment corner, and Hamish gave you that compliment before. But when I was listening to your music, straight away, I was like, whoever this songwriter is such a talented songwriter because it's all there. And the other thing I thought was, they must be English. There's the pommy thing about it.
Yeah.
No, but it's not. You know what I mean? It's that music, and you can hear it. It's very soulful, and that comes from hard, terrible times living under grey skies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's true.
It's not what I hear while I've been in Australia. That's not the music I hear.
Yeah, dude, you make a good point, and I actually have talked about this quite a few people before. Because I have a theory that the best music is written by people who endure bad weather. because
I've said this before myself, man.
so I actually I've talked about this quite a bit before, where if you think about it, major musical movements do not come from places where the weather is nice, and when they do, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you think about the cultural turning points musically, the Beatles, Oasis, the grunge thing. Those are all from fucking rainy places, man. Heavy metal, Birmingham, like it's all from rainy places. Like the krautrock thing that kind of precipitated the entire development of like synthy kind of EDM-y music. The weather in Germany is not good. And my theory is that unless, like me, you're a big nerd, if the weather's nice, you spend time outside. And if you're outside, you're not practicing. Whereas if the weather sucks, what else have you got to do but like hang out in your room and play guitar and listen to records?
Liam, I just want to say something for 1 second. I think the reason your music's good is because you suffer from the same white kind of pasty skin that I suffer from, where if you go out of your house for 5 minutes in summer, you look like a lobster. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
dude, this isn't a t-shirt. This is just what my skin looks like.
So I don't think it's all good weather over here, man. It's so hot in summer. Like, I'm surprised we don't get more good songs written in the air conditioning,
Dude, I agree personally. But I think that also, while we're at it, if you look at the history of Australian music, a lot of the great Australian songwriters and the great Australian rock bands are not particularly Australian.
Yeah.
AC/DC are all Scots. Doc Neeson from the Angels is from the north of Ireland. Jimmy Barnes is Scottish too.
Scottish, yeah.
I mean, Cold Chisel are barely an Australian band. Like, fucking probably get crucified for saying this, but if you look at that band, Barnesy's from Glasgow, Steve Presswich is a Scouser. Like, how many Aussies actually were there? Ian Moss is Australian technically, but like, I think that there's probably like a very long conversation to be had about how down here we have a bit of cultural Stockholm syndrome when it comes to the UK.
Yeah.
We tend not to value our artists at all until someone from like one of the like real countries, like the US or the UK, tells us they're valuable. But I don't know. I think that if you look at like with notable exceptions, like say Van Halen. Yeah. Generally speaking, great music doesn't come from places where quality of life is extremely high. Which I don't get because I write great music and my life fucking rules. So go figure.
It'd have to with a mustache like that, my friend. It would have to.
That's right. I've been trying to go for like an Ian Rush thing.
Yeah, it is exactly like Ian Rush. And that was the great thing about Liverpool in the 80s. Kenny would get the ball and I'd just be there and then I'd score. Every Ian Rush interview he's ever done is like that. But it's interesting you say that, though, about the weather. And, I think, in the band I play in, my bandmates often say to me, you do quite like a depressing song, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, because I just can't write a happy song. And I think it's when you come from somewhere with not a lot of opportunities. And as you say, the weather is bleak. There's just nothing to be happy. That's what I couldn't believe. I mean, I can now, knowing, you're a Scouse Paddy. I can understand it now. But at first, I was like, I just weren't expecting it at all. Which must be a good thing for you in Australia, because you're doing that. You're doing what a lot of Aussies go elsewhere for, and you can do that here.
Yeah, it's been quite good, and one of the things that I think was a great strength for us was me and Matt and Johnny. So that's me, obviously, like I sing and I play guitar and write the songs. Matt played bass. Johnny was the other guitar player. All of us have pretty much the same trajectory, like a family tree-wise. Irish grandparents moved to the north of England, Like, so Johnny's filthy Mancunian, Matt's from Derby.
Mm.
Both of them were actually born in England. And so I think that I didn't know them as kids when we were kids, but we had very similar upbringings. So like as we got to know each other through being in a band together, like just stupid jokes about like having like an uncomfortably scratchy communion shirt, or like, yeah, see, you get it. Just like stupid shit from like growing up very similarly, but not knowing each other at all. We grew up in very different parts of Sydney. Obviously, I wasn't born in England, but those two guys were. We had very similar upbringings, and I think that when we all got together, we didn't have that much musical taste in common. We all liked rock, but there weren't that many bands that we all liked. But the big ones were Thin Lizzy, because me and Matt were like obsessed. And Johnny from Manchester, ironically, was not, he'll tell you otherwise if you fucking interview him, but he was not an Oasis guy when he joined the band. But because he was from Manchester, I kind of like did Noel Gallagher impressions at him pretty consistently. And just like me and Matt were always putting Oasis on in the car. And he was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. Oh, I'm from a cool city. This is pretty great. Being from Manchester is way better than being from like Turramurra or wherever, you know. And he got heaps into him. And ironically, I think because he's a city guy, he was really into the Beatles. And I was like never a huge Beatles guy. But like my old man's from Liverpool and I was super into Oasis. And I always thought that was like a really fun synchronicity. Is that correct? Idiosyncrasy is what I meant.
Idiosyncrasy.
Yeah.
Was your old man a Beatles fan? Is your old man a Beatles fan?
Yeah, the old fellow likes the Beatles. I mean, I like the Beatles. You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't? And as I get older and
Start losing your hair?
Yes. Not yet, mate. It's all there.
Many years from now.
Not with my genetics, pal. The Irish don't age well. But look, as I get older and like my love of music and like my obsession with writing good songs continues to endure, I think I appreciate the Beatles more. But I think that I think that it's better to go into that band and like try and learn from them than to try and go in with an air of reverence. Because one of the things that I really disliked about rock when I started playing in bands, and still dislike, was how people started becoming reverent, start talking about halls of fame and legends and immortals. And like, it was like Rolling Stone top 100 lists. And I don't know about you, but I personally don't think that like people are special. Like, you're not like an innately special person just because you wrote like Stairway to Heaven. You're a talented guy and you deserve to be praised for that. But I don't think that you should be put like on a pedestal or like you should be treated as if you're magic, because the end result of that is that like you either think that if you're a songwriter, right, you look at the people who write great songs and you're like, oh, you're magic. There's something special about you. You're untouchable. You're unattainable. You exist on a different plane of existence to the rest of us. If you think like that and you're a musician, you arrive at one of two conclusions. Conclusion number one, which is unacceptable, is that you are also magic and therefore entitled to success, which is a great way to make yourself and everyone around you miserable. Or conclusion
piss off your band members.
Especially your band members.
Yeah.
Tell you what, if you interview Matt and Johnny, I'm sure they'll be like, Liam thinks he's fucking magic, boys. He's a fucking pest to row. But the second conclusion, which is also really sad, is that like music is reserved for magic people and you're not one of them.
That's very true, man. I went through a stage where I could not listen to the Beatles because I couldn't write. I just could not write because I can't better that. I can't do better than that. And being from Liverpool, to be a songwriter and being a band, you've always got that thing. He's going to be the next Beatles then, and you're like, the stress it gives you an anxiety you don't need. So I think you're absolutely right on that point, because the higher you put those people, the tougher it is for you to think you could be like that, you know? And then maybe there's an element of you not trying or not trying hard enough because you think, well, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, and like I definitely.
That's interesting, man. That's a very interesting point.
I definitely put myself through the ringer. Like I am much harsher on myself than anyone is to me. It's like when I write songs, when the four of us were still jamming together, like I wouldn't just come in with every song I ever wrote. Like I wouldn't come in like every Wednesday and be like, here are 4 ideas that I had. I would religiously, meticulously, actually, if I pivot this a little, you can see my fucking obsessive stack of notebooks where I write lyrics. I obsessively like draft and redraft songs over and over because I sit around like I'll play with an idea like, oh, that's kind of cool, like that's all right, that's pretty cool, and try and work out ways to write it and make it good, right? So I think that the ratio of songs that I wrote to songs that actually showed up at rehearsal was probably 3-1, maybe 5-1, right? And then of those songs, the ones that made it to being played live was probably, again, 1 in 2 or 1 in 3. And then I think 80% of them survived. Because like, if you are a songwriter, I think you have to be your own worst critic. First of all, so that when people write you a bad review, you're not upset because you've already said worse shit about yourself. But second of all, it's because that's like, you're the only filter you really have. Like you can be in a cool band like mine where we all talk shit to each other and I'll be like, this song sucks, don't play it. Which happened a few times. Not that often because all my songs are great, but like a few times. And, you know, I was always really unimpressed when bands that I thought were really cool, it was obvious they were phoning it in, right? Like you think you're into a band and they do like a really great first album, and then like their second album is kind of like obviously not inspired.
That's the problem though, isn't it? Second album syndrome is because you go your life and you amount these songs and then you go, right, these are the fucking 10, 11, whatever songs. These are the best songs. This is the record. And then you put that out and then your label's like, come on, let's get the next one. And then you'll probably have 3 or 4 that never made the cut on the first one. So you go, oh, okay, well, they're on because they just missed out. And then you might not have another single in you, you know? And the other thing as well, me and Hamish have had this conversation before, like success kills bands sometimes, man. There's no secret, you know, there's a certain bands I'm thinking from America who, you know, first few albums are great and they grew up, you know, in the sticks, all playing together great rock and roll, and now they're married to Victoria's Secret models and worth millions. And the music has not been that good since.
Yeah.
Like it's not a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, you think about a lot of great records are in the bracket of the first 3 albums of an era of a band. Right? Yeah. Like I think Rumours is like Fleetwood Mac's like 5th album overall, but their lives sucked internally, despite the fact that they were all like rich rock stars. You know what I mean? They were just making each other miserable. Which goes back to what you were saying before about like misery being, if not the mother, then at least a contributing parent in the like IVF swirl of inspiration. But I think that if you look at a lot of the trajectory of bands, there are a lot of bands who have a promising first record and an okay second record. And you can actually see that pretty consistently across the board in a lot of disciplines. I really subscribe to the idea that skills, like the process of getting good at anything, is transferable. So like, have you ever noticed how like people who are really great guitar players are also, I don't know, they like might be like pretty good athletes, or they're like funny, or
yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like people who are good at one thing tend to be good at a bunch of other things.
Yeah. Well, that's that thing that you're talking about where you just everything you do it meticulously, where you want to be good at it. You know what I mean? Like you become obsessed with something. You know, Jack and I were having the conversation the other day. He asked me why music, and I think because you can't, you know, you you were fully sucked into it. It became you, and you couldn't even help it because all your interests aligned with it, and you wanted to read about it, listen to it, study it. You didn't want to fucking do anything else. And I think, if you have that kind of mindset, anything you do becomes obsessive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is kind of how I still think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't have a regular job. Like I don't go to work for anybody else right now.
Yeah.
I play guitar in like various configurations. I play guitar for a cool Paddy punk band called Medusa's Wake. I play weddings. I do pub covers. I played a really cool gig just before Christmas for a bunch of Celtic supporters.
On the hoops.
Sorry, what was that?
There's a few people that on the hoops. No, there's a few people in Scotland who just went, "Hey, good man, hey, good man."
Up the fucking hoops. Yeah, they were fucking great. But I don't really like. Sorry, there are many things that I love and many things that I enjoy, but I don't really have like a fire under me for that many things as much as I do about music.
Are you competitive with music?
No, I'm not really a competitive person at all. It's like I'm not competitive in the sense that I watch other people and go, I'm going to beat you. I am competitive with myself in that I always want to be doing better. Like when I found out that George Carlin used to write a new stand-up set every year, I was like, oh, cool. So that means that when I'm writing songs, if something wasn't good enough a year ago, it's not good enough now. I'm just going to keep writing songs until I write something better. Right? That's in my head. That was how you avoid sophomore slump. You avoid like rehashing old material. Now, keen-eyed viewers will notice that I have recycled precisely 2 songs / parts in my life. So anyone who was around when we were still called the Bitter Sweethearts will recognize our minor hit single Talk as belonging to an EP that came out in 2014 or 15 called In Harmony, when it resolutely failed to land on any radio station. But because it was a mad song.
It is a mad song, man.
Like
that's a fucking great song. That's can I just say, this is completely off topic, but I'd be interested one day coming over and just hanging out and listening to your like Pro Tool, or Logic sessions that you've got on your computer, and just being like, man, that one or that one, and just having a listen with you, dude, because like I reckon you've got some great shit that you've just mentally blocked yourself from putting out,
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if he's saying, the amount of songs he wrote that never even got to be played live. There'd be songs in there that people would love. You yourself don't think they're good enough,
I guarantee you they were.
Give yourself a break. Give yourself a break, man.
Dude, let us come over one evening and fucking, because you might not love it, but also, like that'll hit a nerve with, me or, somebody else, and just say, do you know what I mean? Like play it to, do you have a missus? Like, does she listen to you? Yeah. Just see if it makes her like, start tapping her foot and, she, but
actually,
what I'm trying to say
a funny
here?
Story about that. My ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
I played her the demo for Talk when I wrote it, which was like 2014, 15, I think. And she was like, this song sucks. Sucks. It sounds like Oasis.
I'd have left that woman too.
Yeah.
But no, because I played the demo and I was like, no, it's cool. It's got like this. I don't know if you can hear that through the speaker, but it's got the cool like ABBA thing at the beginning, like the augmented C chord. So I'll play it here just very quickly, like this. Was like a cool augmented C thing, so the melody's a bit funky. And my favorite part is the riff, like the and how the notes that land on the one beat all line up harmonically with the chords from the chorus.
Yeah.
Right. So the first one is an A, which sits like with an F. You know, like at the time, it was the most sophisticated thing I've ever written, and I'm very proud of it. And she was like, "That song sucks. It just sounds like Oasis, and no one cares about Oasis as much as you do."
Well, I bought tickets for Liam this morning, man, so I'll challenge you with that.
Yes. Yeah, she was wrong. That song ended up doing like all right, just not here. It did better overseas, which is kind of predictable for this type of music. Like, there's not as much of an appetite in Australia for like first of all, for like music that might be considered derivative of like Oasis as a prime example, but that sort of era of British music.
Have you played overseas? Have you played in the UK?
Yeah, we went and did a tour of the UK in 2018.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you play Liverpool?
We didn't play Liverpool. I really wanted to.
It's a smart decision.
Dude, I saw a band in Liverpool that was mad called Revival Black.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were fucking great live band, and their singer's about like 4 feet tall, or he's not literally 4 feet tall. He's a very little guy, and as you can see from this very high quality picture, I'm an enormous human being. So I was like, I notice when people are tiny, but he's a great singer, man. He's like, it's like that, dude. I actually think this is a thing, right? Sometimes
was he a falsetto?
No, dude, it's like the full Paul Rodgers like soul voice thing. It was crazy.
Okay.
I think sometimes short dudes, like little petite guys, have the maddest voices. I don't know what it is, because typically you'll be like, oh, you like be a big guy like Pavarotti and you have a mad voice, like you got like diaphragm support and whatever. But sometimes it's like the littlest guys have the maddest voices. Like Axl Rose is like crazy short. Bon Scott was super short.
Yeah.
I fucking saw
Michael Hutchins was short, wasn't he?
Sorry?
Michael Hutchins in excess, he was short, wasn't he?
Oh,
yeah, he was a little guy.
Yeah. Well, everyone's going to be shorter than us, Jack. And Liam, like we're all pretty tall. You're pretty tall, Jack. Come on.
Am I?
Well, I thought you were pretty tall, man. I'm what, 6'3", 6'4"?
Cuban heels, baby. Cuban heels. Gotta have the inches when I can get them, where I can get them. Yeah, I'm not tall. I'm not a tall man. How tall are you, Liam?
6'2".
Yeah, I'm the short ass from that band you seen in Liverpool. That was probably me.
No, you're probably tall for Liverpool though, in fairness. It's not fucking like English people are little, man. I was walking around Lime Street Station like Godzilla, just fucking head and shoulders.
It's because of all the anger we carry.
It is, dude. It's the same thing the Scottish people have.
Weighs us down, man. Weighs us down.
Hey, Jack.
So, yeah, that and the fucking malnutrition. Although, where did I go in Liverpool? I had a mad feed at the Lobster Pot.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. That's a landmark chip shop, Hamish.
Yeah.
Where you can see a drunk person inside and outside laying on the floor at any time of the day.
Yeah.
Morning, noon, or night. It's fantastic.
Fucking
You're at the Lobster Pot. So Liam, what's the plans then? What's the incarnation of the band looking like? What's the future gonna hold?
Look, for the minute, it's online releases for now. So basically, the story is the tunes that we're putting out, including the single we just put out, Evidence of Life.
Evidence of Life. Very, very good song.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah. A positive song from me for a change as well, rather than like an angry song or a sad song. But yeah, Evidence of Life, or Boys Are Back in Town 2, as I used to call it. it comes from a session that we did in 2019 where I had the bright idea of doing a live record. So for a long time, people would like come to the show and like see us play live. And I've got some good footage that I'm going to put out over the next couple of months. They'll come see us play live and be like, you know, the live show is great, but the record doesn't really like capture.
Happens so often.
Yeah.
It happens so often, man.
And like the big boy answer would have been, that's correct. I don't have six figures worth of money to spend on a recording that would adequately do this.
Yeah.
You know, like famously, it took Oasis how long and how they almost bankrupted Creation Records trying to capture the power of their live show for Definitely Maybe. And it's because when we were recording Hurry Up and Wait, because people had said that to us for years, I hit up Owen Morris, who produced the first three Oasis records, to be like, hey, we're doing our first album and we want you. And we got within this fucking close to getting him. But our recording window was when he was on holiday in Costa Rica.
Oh, man.
But I wasn't complaining too much because we wound up with Tony Wall, who did Kiss Alive 4, and Paul Stanley's like One Live Kiss record, which, as you can see, wrong hand. As you can see from the poster behind me, I'm a big Kiss fan. So that worked out really well. But because we'd heard that for a long time, I had the idea in my head where I was like, we should do something like that, because the Hurry Up and Wait was wasn't as ferocious as I envisaged the band as being and as we came across on stage, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just, you know, I was quite accustomed to hearing like a jet engine turn on behind me. It's like someone throwing a fucking crate of Guinness through a jet engine.
Yeah.
And that record just doesn't sound like that. It did quite well like overseas. Like if the radio play was cool and like it got us the attention we needed to get. But what I really wanted to do was get something that's like a bit ferocious, a bit hairy, a bit gnarlier. And so we did those two singles, Right Behind the Eyes and Contact Sport with Damien Gerard, or at Damien Gerard Studios. And that was kind of closer to the level of aggression that I wanted from the recorded product. Because like you guys didn't see us play live, but our show was like very intense. We're like notoriously hard to follow. So it got to a point where I just started booking our own gigs because bands didn't want us as an opening band anymore, because we'd be like fucking running around on stage and I'd be like kicking shit over and fucking like pouring beer on my head. I used to have this move that I had to stop doing where, to accentuate a particular stab in the set, I would like scull most of a beer, and then like a particular moment, like I would go and just spray it all over Matt. And it looked mad, like with the lights and everything, but it would be like
Triple H fan by any chance?
No, I know who that is because of Motorhead, but I'm not a wrestling guy.
Yeah. Okay. No, he used to do that. He used to come out, drink water, and then spit it all over the crowd, which I don't think would be COVID friendly anymore.
Dude, no way. But it was like stuff like that, because I'd seen like Airborne and like bands like Kiss when I was younger, and I was like, I want to do like a big, like fucking mad stage show, and we didn't have fire or like fireworks or, you know, any of the things that like big bands have. So I was always like trying to like fucking G people up. And what I worked out was that if you make like an idiot of yourself, especially when you do these sort of gigs, when we go out and play in the country, playing like Orange, like 20 people, you've really got to win them over, because you're playing at like one of 2 or 3 pubs in the town. So like if you're shitty on like a Saturday night and you book the show and you're the headliner, you've ruined their weekend, because they can't go somewhere else. So we got really good and like became like a really intense, like high energy live show. Yeah. Because of that. And if you watch live videos of us, particularly when I had hair like down to here, it was like there was a lot going on. Yeah. So what I wanted to do was capture that. And I had the idea to do a live record, but I didn't want to do like the pub band thing of like just recording a show.
Yeah.
It's like that's not the same thing. And like, you know, you get older and you learn that like Live and Dangerous has overdubs and like Kiss Alive has overdubs. So it's not the same thing. And also, I think that unless you're playing like Nebworth or Wembley Stadium, a live record is like kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Unless you're Thin Lizzy, and then you can do whatever you want. But the idea we had was initially to do a video EP. We were like, people don't really buy records anymore. We want to get the point across, and maybe that requires like some visual stimulation. So we got our mate Michael Chow to video us recording like what is functionally a live album in the studio. So it's like played live. And there's like some like dubbing here and there, like cleaning up, you know, like a vocal take or something, like a flubbed guitar part or whatever. But like it's a pretty much a live record. So that track Evidence of Life is like about as live gets in the age of the internet. The original idea before things kind of imploded was that we would release this as a video EP, to have like the video of us performing be the release, and it'll be like 25 minutes long, I think was the plan. And that would be the product to kind of take us to the next level. That was the plan, because my thinking was that the rock audience wants like old school consumption. They want a vinyl record or a CD, or they want like a long player. They're not really a singles market. They just like to be honest with you, I still don't buy singles. Like I still like albums, and I consider myself like a pretty prototypical rock fan. So that was what we did. But I was also conscious of the fact that, you know, at the time was 2019, and you can't just stick to like the old ways of doing things, particularly not now, right? When things change so quickly. Yeah. So that was it. So it's like a live record. It was meant to be like the opening salvo of an album campaign, because like long term what I wanted to do was like take the 2 singles, Contact Sport and Right Behind the Eyes, and those 5 tracks, and then some other stuff, and have that be like a 10-track album of just pure high quality like road tested material, because all the songs were like very much road tested. They were songs that we'd been touring and like trying out in front of people, different configurations, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously it didn't pan out that way.
Yeah.
But you know, I figured during the last lockdown, I was listening to it, and I was talking to Johnny and Matt on like having a couple of Zoom beers one day, and I was like, these songs are mad. I should just put them out.
Yeah. Can I say something, Liam? I got 2 things to say. One, well done. You survived my hometown when I was checking you out. You went and played in Dubbo at the old bank, and I was like, what a fucking legend. He's gone all the way to Dubbo to my, you know. Anyway, and you know, and you survived it. So well done. And next thing I wanted to say is, the other day, me and Jack were talking about, you know, like what you could do in the digital age to be a band. And we're talking about, Jack was saying about concept albums the other day. And I thought, you know, I think you could probably make a concept album if you were able to actually then put in a visual concept and, you know, spend a lot of money on lighting or whatever, or just have an idea, you know. But the fact that you were thinking back then, man, I fucking wish you did it, because then we would have gone into lockdown and we would have been stuck. You know, it would have been like the perfect time almost in history to do it.
I know.
And you would have been the
because that how much free time to sit and watch that thing, you know, as if you're putting Netflix on and you're watching The Office. You'd go there and you'd watch that all unfold. Really good idea. So are you sat on? So when did you write that song?
All these songs I wrote 2018, 19.
So you're sitting on 2-3 years, you know, of new songs right now. Have you still been writing? Was you writing through the lockdown?
Yeah, 100%. So as you may have guessed at this point, I write songs pretty much compulsively.
Yeah.
Not as frequently as I used to. But I write heaps of songs like all the time. And again, most of them suck, but every so often I do write a good one. And you know, put it on a phone recording. And yeah, I think to be honest with you, I think like any creative pursuit ought to be innately rewarding, regardless of what other people think of it. It's nice when other people like stuff, and it obviously like makes you feel good, because otherwise none of us would put anything out ever.
Yeah.
But I started writing songs with no band. I stopped writing songs for a band. You know what I mean? Like I got away from the brief in my head of being like, oh, I'll write this type of song or that type of song. And would just listen to music and have a cool idea, or be reading and have a cool idea, or, you know, even hear a song that I thought was cool and try and steal it.
Just like your favourite band did.
Yeah.
Quite a bit to band from Liverpool. openly admitting it as well.
Yeah,
no,
dude.
openly admit that.
And like I used to like get people like coming at me and being like, hey, this song you wrote sounds like this other song. And I was like, yeah, I know. Why? Of course it sounds like that. I wanted it to sound like that. That's not I'm not pretending that I wrote. There's a song I used to do called Spaceman, which had an ending section, where it was based on the end of the Angels' No Secrets, right? And I was like, I wanted to write an Angels song. So I sat down and like listened to a bunch of Angels songs, and like it came up with a guitar harmony that I thought was cool, and put it at the end of this song. And some guy was like, this sounds like No Secrets by the Angels. And I was like, I know. You think I haven't noticed that?
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, like with this one, right? As I've said it before, that like I wanted to do, because people always say there's no like fucking songs about the boys being back in town, right? And when we were touring the UK, my buddy Clive was like one of my best mates from school, had been living in England for a few years. I hadn't seen him in a while. So he came to a couple of dates that we did. He did like Hull and Bolton with us, just like carried amps and flogged t-shirts, and it was like nice to see him. But I was so excited. I was so thrilled just like to watch his silhouette emerge from Hull's train station. And I was like, I have to write a song about this. I have to write a song about this feeling of being like, the boys are well and truly back in town. Like we're gonna recapture a moment of our lives. And it's so rare that you get the opportunity to be grateful while you're doing something. Yeah. Typically we appreciate things after they have happened.
Yeah, so true, man. That's so true.
So I was like, I'm gonna write a song about that. And so I did. I like listened to a lot of Thin Lizzy. I got really into the Strokes that year. Like we came back from England and all the reviews we'd got were like, this band sounds a bit like the Strokes. And I was
really?
like,
I could hear that. I could hear that actually. I could hear that.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, they must be good then, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd never really got into them. They kind of
well, if they sound like me, then they must be brilliant.
Yes.
I reckon Julian Casablancas is going, oh, that Liam Whelan's a bloody good songwriter, I tell you.
Yeah. They're fucking sending his kids to Swiss boarding school or some shit. Yeah. I mean, actually, that'd be another band where it's a great example of like minimal adversity in life, but they managed to write great songs. But anyway, yeah, so I got really into that band. And then I found out that he was a big Thin Lizzy guy. And I was like, all right, what I'm going to try and do is work out what you've taken from Phil and see if I can find it in your music. Because I'm sure you guys both like play music and stuff. So like when you're playing guitar or something and you listen to a particular guitar player, sometimes you will hear that they've borrowed a lick from someone else. So I was trying to do that in a songwriting sense. And so I went very deep into that rabbit hole. There's a particular record of theirs, Angles, that I got really into. Yeah. And particularly the song Under Cover of Darkness.
Yep.
Which is like if someone had told Aha to like cover a Thin Lizzy song. That's what that song sounds like to me. That whole record is like very Thin Lizzy-ish to me. It's particularly with like the level of sophistication that the guitar parts have and how the layers fit together, like the way there's like two guitars and bass moving around quite a lot, and the very busy drum parts with like a lot of right hand work. So I got very like obsessed with that and trying to be like, okay, what have you taken? Like, what works for you? Because we're all eating at the same sandwich table. It's just like about picking the right ingredients for your sandwich, right? And then from there, and if you fucking find me on Spotify, I still have a playlist it's called like Sounds Like Thin Lizzy. I just went through like a bunch of bands and I'll like find a song that like tuned my ear to be like, oh, this is a bit Boys Are Back in Towny. I got super into it. And I, from that, picked up a couple of like habits and little nods, song-wise, like structurally, melodically, that really gave me that feeling of the boys are back in town tonight. Like it's gonna be the best kind of trouble.
These were there.
Yeah, and
together.
And yeah, it was great. It was like it was.
Yeah.
And what I really wanted
was
Hull to have like an explosive way into the song, right?
Yeah.
If you listen to my songs, I always write an intro because Van Halen always wrote an intro, and I'm like, every Van Halen song, you know what song it is within like 10 seconds. Even if it's not like a different section, like riff-wise, there's an intro arrangement, right? So I always try to write an intro. So for this song, I want a really explosive intro. I wanted like to come in, bang, straight away. Like because I didn't want people to be like easing into, be like, oh, I know this song. I wanted them to know exactly what it was. So like little things like that you pick up from sort of this like level of obsessive note taking and theft that I did. You end up writing better songs for it because you're actively learning. And I think the song speaks for itself. Like I think it's probably one of the best songs that I wrote.
Do you ever, when you're writing, if you have a piece of music, and do you ever think, oh, this sounds a bit like such an artist, right? And do you ever say, oh, like you said before, I was trying to write a song like Angels, you took like the Angels, you were saying that, right? Like the ending. Do you ever write a song with that band in mind of it's you writing one of their songs for them?
Sometimes, yeah.
Because I do that a lot, man. I actually, and then like my brother or someone will be like, oh, it sounds like this. And I'll be like, I know, because it's as if it should have been on that album that they did, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my wink and a nod to those bands. And it's quite a nice thing when someone says, oh, it sounds like that.
I always took it as a compliment. I don't think people always meant it as a compliment, but I always took it as a compliment because for me, I look at it and I'm like, people walk up to Noel Gallagher and they'd be like, you fucking stole from T-Rex or you stole from Stevie Wonder. He'd be like, yep, sure did. Did good, didn't I?
Can I just want to chime in and say, like, when people are after Noel and the Beatles, every band steals from somewhere. Like, you know what I mean? It's all kind of borrowed and little bits are pinched and sampled or whatever. But I always just feel like, but is the end result good? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, when you did take your, borrowed ingredients from here and there, is the end result better? Or just as good, I think that's what if you're borrowing heaps of shit, that's what your goal should be at the end of the,
Well, look at any band like any band advertising for members, right? Or and musicians around Sydney or wherever, those groups. It's always looking to start a band. I'm a bass player. I'm looking for people who like, and they'll list a few bands because the sound of that band. They're going into it because they want to play music like that. So, it's something that happens from the beginning of like the genesis of starting the band anyway is, oh, what do you like to listen to? And you all get to, oh, I like these and I like these. And everyone, it's like a melting pot and everyone's coming to the party. And it's like, oh, I like these. And then it ends up being like a mix anyway of all that music.
Yeah.
So I think at any time, I think if something's so obvious and you go, like, that, like that's plagiarism, right? But the wink and a nod thing is like that's our trick in music to respecting what's gone before,
Yeah, it is. And also, I think that when you try to be original, right, you try self-consciously to be creative, you suck. Because like everything that's good, not everything that's good, but like pretty much everything that's good, particularly in rock, which has been around for what, 70 years now. Like a lot of the great stuff was already written. So I go back to this job I used to have when I was like 20, and I'm a big reader. I like talking to people who also read. And there's this guy I worked with who claimed to be a writer, and foolishly, I assumed that because he claimed to be a writer, that he also read. And I was like, "Hey, man, like, who do you read right now? Like, what are you into?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't read books. I don't want anyone else to influence my creativity." And in the back of my head, I went, "Oh, that means you suck." And I've seen that proven every single time I've talked to a band. Like, fucking, you guys are in bands, right? You've had this conversation, right? You go play with a band, and because your band is like good, they're opening for you. So you're like, "Hey, man, nice to meet you. How you going?" You go, "All right, yeah, fucking have a little chat." And you go, "So what kind of music are you guys into? What kind of music do you play?" And I go, I couldn't describe it. Every single time someone says like, "I couldn't really put a genre on it," or they're like, "Oh, our guitar player likes metal and our drummer likes funk." You're like, "Oh, you suck. You're not good." Like every time, 100%.
Yeah.
I've been right about it every time.
Yeah.
Like the number of gigs I did where I've had that fucking chat. Like, I'm a guitar player, like talk to the guitar player, and you'll be like, "Oh, cool." Like, there's no look. Like, one of you is in a Megadeth t-shirt, one of you is wearing a suit and tie, one of you is in spandex, like one of you is shown up in like a fucking blue singlet and like paint encrusted Timberlands. You're gonna be bad.
Yeah.
And they always are. And somehow it always ends up being like an indie funk situation.
Yeah. Always
no one can decide.
Cosmic psychedelic sounds of the bathtub, like it's.
Yeah.
That's a great name for a record.
Yeah, Cosmic Psychedelic. Sounds like fucking, what's that band? King Gizzard would release that record. Yeah, it's 100% at the time, because like you're trying too hard to be original.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like true, like real originals, like my buddy Jake Blatchley, who goes by Season, he's a genuine original. There's like someone once told him, there's like, "Oh, mate, you're the next Axl Rose," and he goes, "No, I'm the first Jake Blatchley." He's an original, but he became an original by like unashamedly loving things.
Yeah, you have
not
to.
trying to be original. He just did what he wanted to do and like found his own voice that way. Which is why I think that like when I write songs, I think that I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve a fair bit.
Yeah.
But like even when I like sat down and I was like, I want to write like a Thin Lizzy song, or I want to write there's a song that'll come out this year where I wanted to do something like Van Morrison. There's another one where I wanted to do something that was like the song Bad Reputation off the album Bad Reputation by Thin Lizzy. It still sounds like us. Like it still sounded like our band. It still sounded like I was writing the songs, because if you're honest with yourself about where you're coming from or what you're borrowing from, you're never going to sound like someone else anyway.
Yeah.
Your music will always sound like you if you're singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Brandon Flowers goes and does solo records away from the Killers, and they sound like Killers records because the singer is the point that you listen to. You know what I mean? So, yeah, anything you do, any road if you want to go and be an indie funk band, it will still sound like you. Those things will still come out.
That'd be really funny. Like, I'd be interested in hearing that though, just as for a gag.
Yeah, I can do it now. Hold on. Yeah, so it's just this, right?
Do you play in Newtown?
I was getting into that.
I try not to. Try not to play in Newtown. Where do I play? I play in fucking heaps of places, not Newtown. Yeah, I think it's a weird one. It's too much self-consciousness, I reckon. People need to calm the fuck down. You know, like what's the point of being in a band if you take yourself like fully seriously? It's a ridiculous thing to do. It's also, I love it when people pretend to be humble And you ever do this? You ever go to a gig and there's some guy who's like, oh, I'm not special. You're like, man, come on. You believe in yourself enough to get up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You've got
exactly
to have a
right.
big
You know,
set of balls on you to get up anyway.
to be honest, that
So,
really annoyed me
you know,
for a while. Like where
embrace it.
every no, like there was a lot of bands. I think in the just before like COVID, like 2016 to maybe 2008, like 18, where I don't know. I just saw a lot of that shit. You know what I mean? And there wasn't too many people like standing on their own backbone.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I think
promoters don't like it though. If you're the other way, I've been called some really nice compliments, but you know, a lot of people wouldn't take them very well. Because I was, when I asked you if you were competitive before, my band at home, we used to have this thing like coming to conquer. Like we're gonna come and we will be the best fucking band on that bill.
Yeah.
Try and stop us, you know. And then you go through that what you were saying earlier, Liam, about nobody wants you to open because they're like, why would we have these come in and they're wanting to come and put on this big performance and beat us and be better than us? Why can't we all just get along? And I don't really think music should always be like that, man. I think it's I think you should admire bands, right? Other bands, and you should. Me doing this podcast is really good because I get to speak to someone like yourself, and I get to speak to Hamish all the time, and I get to see the thing of not just going and being the rock star, you know what I mean? Going and playing that part, and like really why we're all here. You know, we all fucking love music. That's why we're all here.
Yeah,
and I think,
totally.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with if you're in a band being like, no, why would you go into anything and not want to be the best at it? You know?
Yeah. So when I said I wasn't competitive, I wasn't.
But you are. You are with yourself.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are with yourself.
But
you
here's
must
the
be.
thing,
You
right?
must be playing with bands and being, I'm the best songwriter here anyway, so I'll just write one better than I did before. So you are.
Yeah, but
it's there.
That means you're in the wrong room. You're on the wrong bill. So years ago, right? Once we solidified the lineup with Marcus and Johnny, and I was like, cool. Right now, of the bands that I've seen, I write the best songs that I know of. Marcus is the best drummer there is. And I still think that, by the way. He's not only the best drummer I play with, he's probably one of the best drummers I've seen. Matt is a great bass player, and Johnny is my favorite guitar player, right? So I was like, great, cool. So the band individually, shit hot, great stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, I need to fucking step up my game vocally, songs-wise. So I did. And then we played shows with bands in Sydney where, like, we would routinely just, like, kick their asses. Like, we just murder them. Like, you go out and, like, just go out and kill. Like, their audience would be there for you, and then they fuck off when they were playing, and they crack the shits with you after. You're like, well, you should have played better.
Yeah.
Fuck you. This mentality may also reveal to you why I'm not particularly popular in some circles.
Well,
do you want to be popular or good? You know,
I'd much rather be good, mate.
Yeah,
I
like you. Don't worry about it. I like you.
But we were doing
okay.
Sydney, right? And we were like, we stagnated about rooms worth about 100 people in Sydney, right? We're doing this Iggy Pop thing when the Lockharts had that going, which may have been before your guys' time, but that was a very cool thing. It was a very big deal to me. So we're doing that a lot with them. And I was like, cool, this takes us nowhere. We're playing the same fucking like 50 to 100 people every time we play. So we need to graduate from the five nights a week in Sydney thing and do something else. So what I did was I started calling venues. I looked at the bands that we'd opened for, right? Bands that we'd opened for when they were coming through on tour through Sydney. And I looked at the tour dates they had done, and I called the venues. I like just cold called them. I was like, hey, my name's Liam. I play in a cool band. We want to come and play in like Port Macquarie.
Yeah.
Or Dubbo.
Yeah.
Like how do we come and play at your venue? I like playing gigs. And I think through like sheer force of will and enthusiasm, we wound up booking like a tour off nothing. Like it would have been like 2015, right? And fortuitously, the first night of this, we played with a band called Black Aces, who are to this day, in my opinion, the best band in the country. And we played a show with them at the Standard Bowl. We were both opening for another touring band called the Cherry Dolls. And we got murdered for the first time ever. Like, we played what I thought was a good show and did our best, but Black Aces murdered us, right? And according to, and like the Cherry Dolls were great that night as well. So a reviewer like went on, they were at the show, like a photographer's and shit, because I always tried to make like every show a thing. And the reviewer was like, nah, they called us a sandwich act. And I took that very personally. I was like, right,
Yeah, man.
Fuck you. I'm going to prove you wrong. We've just played with the best band that I've ever seen. So we're going to be that good next week. So we went in the following week with a fucking big fire under our egos. We used to rehearse twice a week. We went in, we rehearsed Sunday, we rehearsed Wednesday, and we just smashed out our set. And we were like, what do we tweak? Where do we fix it? Like, and I think we did a whole run of shows with Black Aces that year. And I think it took like 2 or 3 shows. We played with them in Bendigo, and we ate shit and died for their crowd. Like, we played to a seated audience, and as soon as they got on stage, like the big fucking airborne entrance, and the crowd was on their feet, and they did like 5 encores and shit. And I just stood there watching, being like, all right, this is how good you've got to be. This is how good we're going to be. We did Melbourne, and we were finally as good as them in Melbourne. And I remember us playing the show in Melbourne and like talking to the guys after, and then being like, fuck me, mate, you lit a fire under our asses. So our thing with them for a long time is that we'd go on runs together. We'd play in a bunch of different places. Like, they'd headline Victoria, we'd headline New South Wales.
Yeah.
And we were competitive with each other, not in a like, not in like a way to try and win, but just that like they would be really great. Yeah. So we would be like, we have to be really great. Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, you guys were great, so we've got to be great. And so we both became like fucking mad live bands. That's
what empowers the scene, though, man. If every band felt like that, and what you were saying there, with you'd switch it, they'd headline, and you'd headline, and going like that, you're all getting better at the same time. Yeah. So the crowd is getting better all the time because they know to expect a great show.
That's right, and that was.
And then it becomes an unmissable gig, not just a Thursday somewhere in Newtown or wherever. It becomes unmissable, and then everyone gains from that just because they're lighting a fire under your arse and you're doing the same to them.
Yeah,
what's the analogy here, boys? Isn't the old saying like iron sharpens iron? Like
that's right.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly like the way to do it. Like, isn't that every band that you've ever read about? Like, I think to some degree you could go back and see the Beatles doing that to the Stones, and Stones doing it to the Beatles, and you could see that with
the Beach Boys,
the Beach Boys,
and
but you could probably see that with Elvis and Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis if you really went back. I think it's how you get good art.
Famously, when Jimi Hendrix guested with Cream, Clapton turned to his manager and said, "You didn't tell me he was that good." I totally agree. And I think that like with the headlining thing, well, if I may touch on it, that was always a matter of numbers. That was always pragmatic. It was like whoever is going to bring people in goes on last, because it's better for us all if we play to more people. Yeah. And one of the things that I think shoots a lot of bands in the foot, and I've been guilty of this as well, like I'm not perfect, is the ego, right? Because we all grew up reading like The Dirt or like fucking Slash's book or whatever. And in those books, what happens is the band plays and they're like full of piss of vinegar, and then someone comes in and sprinkles the fame magic on them and they get to be rock stars. And like that doesn't really happen to most people. But they get to preserve their ego, right? The best thing you can do for yourself, in my opinion, is keep that shit in check. Like, have the right type of ego in the right moment where you're like sitting around like, oh, this is a great fucking song, I'm going to play it for people. It's a great band. Know when to like call people out on their shit. But also in the moment, be like, I don't need a headline. I don't need to be the lead singer today. I don't need to, push my song through when there are other songs that might be better. I think that viciously murdering the part of yourself that is offended when someone else is good or someone else does well is the best thing you can do, not only for your career, but for your emotional well-being. Because I always get fucking psyched, right? Whenever my friends do well, I get psyched because I'm like, good for you, man. I know how hard you worked. I know this means a lot to you, and it would mean a lot to me if it was me. So I get fully psyched. And without naming any names, we've all been around Sydney for a while. There are heaps of people in Sydney who, if something goes well for somebody, will go, oh, it's only because they know someone. It's only because
yeah.
I hate that
right?
shit, man.
And that's exactly.
Do you think that's a part of growing up, though, Liam? Is that as you mature, you start to, you know, where it goes from we're going to do this, we're going to do that. When collectively, you know, your peers essentially are going and doing well, that means you can do that as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Progress is good for everyone. So I think when you can actually enjoy someone else's success and you think, I'll do that next year.
Yeah.
We can do that next year because they've done it and they've showed you, they've done the proving grounds and they've laid those foundations. And, you know, and you can walk down that road because it's there. Whereas if you're constantly just negative and, you know, putting other people's success down to work, or they've got a rich dad who puts loads of money into the band, or, you know, whatever it may be, I feel like that kills bands quicker than anything else.
Yeah.
I say this to Hamish, it's like you've got to check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
And you just go in and, you know, it's a big team game being in a band anyway. And being in a scene really is a team game. Except you're Steven Gerrard and I'm Lucas Leiva.
That's a good one.
So, Liam Whelan, why music?
Because when I got into girls, I realized that the guys who were good at sport got them, and I couldn't play sport and I couldn't dance. So,
that's got to be the most honest answer I think we've had.
Someone should have told me that like learning Van Halen parts was exactly the wrong way to go about doing that. To be very real and very vulnerable, I think the question is more consistently been why not, right? Because like unless you're in like fucking Bon Jovi or whatever, being a musician is pretty hard. Like it's pretty grueling work-wise. Like it's more hours than people realize there is. Like people see you on stage for 45 minutes, but you might have rehearsed 3 hours that week, 6 hours that week with the band to get there, done untold hours of promotional material, like untold hours writing the songs, untold hours practicing to get there. And it, you know, it really does eliminate the weak. There's a lyric in the third verse of Evidence of Life where it's spent in someone else's home. This afternoon's a monochrome. But we technicolorized the streets. We never could be quite discreet. We rattled chaff amongst the wheat and the truth in stereo. And what that line is about is finding joy and finding a reason to continue living in small things, like being 16 and broke but having a great time, right? That's the specific context of it. But it also is about like band life and like being a musician, because in a very real way, for whatever reason, you found some truth in your stereo. Like literally, you listen to a record, or like I was saying before, I stopped what I was doing at a party, like just to listen to Don't Look Back in Anger, because I was like, this is the best song I've ever heard. Right? You found some piece of yourself in music, found some truth, some reason to keep pushing on through it. And the more honest question really is why not? Because there are plenty of reasons not to, right? There are plenty of reasons like, well, it doesn't pay well. Like the hours are shitty. I don't like being away from home. But you continue doing it because there's a piece of you that refuses to quit. And I'm a very bad quitter. I'm really glad I never started smoking because I'm really bad at quitting stuff.
It took me a long time to quit that smoking stuff as well, man.
Yeah. So for me, I think that there are a few moments, like major turning points, just personally. One of them was, as I said, hearing "Don't Look Back in Anger." Another one was when I was, 2006, 12. So when I was 12, I went to the library after school with a bloke that I went to high school with, and went to the CD section. Just picked up a CD because it had a cool cover, right? It was Kiss's Psycho Circus, which has the 3D lenticular cover. And I was like, this looks cool. I just picked it up. I'd never heard of I obviously was familiar with the band, but I didn't know what their music sounded like. And I put it on my little like shitty little CD player that I had. And the first like 50 seconds of that song is circus noise. It's a really weird record. Like the first like 50 seconds of it's like, and then the band comes in with one of my favorite things to do, which is like the power chord intro. I talked shit about power chords on Instagram recently, but I secretly love them. And it like boom, 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 boom. It slowly builds, right? And then Paul Stanley goes, yeah! And I was like, this is my favorite thing. This feeling.
Whatever like, that is, that's
That's my favorite thing. And that was like genuinely, I just sat there listening to the record.
You were 12 years old.
Yeah. I'd been playing guitar for a minute by then. I've been playing guitar for a little while because my old man played guitar and he got me a guitar for Christmas that year. It would have been term 1 or term 2 of year 8 for me. And I was like, this is my favorite thing.
That sounds like testosterone kicking in, you know?
Yeah, that was it. It was going to be that or something far more damaging. You know, at least there's like no cranium trauma if you fucking play guitar instead of football. But yeah, that's like a huge turning point for me. And I think that I often go back to that moment and then like the joy of being a kid and being into bands and getting into bands. Like, you know, when you're like, say 12 and you discover a band and you're obsessed.
Yeah, man, your eyes open, your ears open, and you're just in that moment, aren't you? It's you get taken away by it.
There was a turning point that year because I've been really badly bullied the year before at the school I was at before that. And I was at this new school and I was a very angry person and I was very defensive because I've been bullied horrifically. And someone started to make fun of me and I was like, all right, here we go. And I kind of started getting ready to like throw a fucking table at the guy or some shit, right? And one of the guys that I had met like a week beforehand, because I was a really new kid, was like, oh no, Liam's cool. He plays guitar. And so it was like this very, like these two things happened very close to each other. And like my old man obviously plays guitar, so he was very supportive of it. And all of a sudden I had this like socially sanctioned thing that I was interested in. And that because I was interested in it and I did it all the time, I got good at it. And as soon as you're good at something as a kid and people are like, hey, you're pretty good at this, it latches on. And so I just was obsessed with fucking music and with rock in particular for so long. And the real answer to your question was like, why music, or perhaps why still music, right? Was when we started getting a bit of a following overseas, not because when we were playing here, we mostly played to like our friends and like other people in bands. But I would like get messages, I still do sometimes, from kids who are like 13 years old, like the age that I was when I got into music. And they'll be like, you're my favorite band. This is the sickest thing. And they'll buy like a t-shirt. And for me, that's why I still do it, because I remember being that age. I remember how much it meant to me. Like, to be honest with you, I still am like this. I still get into bands and get obsessed with them. And then I'm like very uncool if I get to meet them, which occasionally happens now because like you're in bands and you like get to meet people and like you do stuff, like you might get to open for someone or whatever. And that's like that feeling and remembering that feeling, and now being in a very privileged position where no matter what I do next, there are songs that I've written that made someone else feel like that. Is why. Because that's the best thing ever, right? It's like
for the next generation of Liam Whelan's.
Yeah, dude, there's gonna be some like curly-headed schmuck who can't grow a mustache yet. You know, just trying their best.
Are you talking about me by any chance?
Yes.
Hey, Liam, this is a little bit of a long story, but long story short, we spoke to Kingswood like a couple episodes ago on this podcast.
Oh, awesome.
And like as a kid, they were like when you set your local hero, you know what I mean? Like the band that you see that is local and feels like you can fucking do this because they can do it and they're not like overseas. You know what I mean? Like they're the ones that are close to home. And I fell in love with Kingswood. And when I went and saw like AC/DC, they opened it like fucking, ANZ. And it like when you said that, it just brought that, full circle moment back around, like that, what those kids are doing is like what I was to Kingswood, you know what I mean? And it's just fucking awesome, man. Like if you've got that following, keep on going, brother.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing in the world. It's it's like 4 kids in Vietnam or something, but they're cool kids, man.
Yeah. But that's the start of it, isn't it, man? Like just keep going. Like I love your songwriting. It's the pay it
forward mentality as well, man. Like that happened to you and you've done that for someone else. And hopefully they'll do that for someone else. And then there'll be other idiots with wet, curly hair. We never dry our hair on this podcast. Down the line, you filthy bitch, Hamish. But there'll be people down the line and this will forever be the conversation going on. And it's people's lives and people's those things that happen to them when they hear that record for the first time that takes them off somewhere. And it was your salvation from being a kid who'd been bullied to now being a kid who was okay. He's got his guitar. Now he's got the guitar. It's those things in life that makes this, for me, I ask why music, because I love that answer you gave me the first time around. I love that. I want Hugh to clip that up. But that answer you gave there, and man, that's the beautiful thing about music. It's so hard to describe why we're in this, why we love it so much. But you did quite a good job.
That was
do my best, mate.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of
so
books.
where can we find you, man? Where can we find you on socials?
At the band Flickertail is probably the most active thing right now. Because Facebook is like angry old people primarily.
Yeah.
At the band Flickertail, there's Instagram. For me personally, if you want to come watch me sing football songs, at Liam Whelan Music would be the other one. I'm not quite on TikTok yet. I don't look good enough in a bikini yet to be on TikTok, but rest assured.
Yeah. You're getting there.
Rest assured we're on the way.
Summer bod incoming. I like it.
Well, Liam,
that's February.
I look forward to seeing your TikTok, man. OnlyFans too, if you got that coming down the line. Fuck, man, it's been an honor, man. Like, thank you so much for coming on. I've actually thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm gonna get crucified after this, from my missus, but it has been an honor, man.
Thanks, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, man. Like, honestly, like Hamish spoke about you in very, very high regard before this, and I listened and I really enjoyed it. And after meeting you, well, over Zoom, over the internet, the thing that people, for me personally, I'd want to go and watch Liam Whelan, the guy who's quite good at writing a song,